Fishing the DMV has big plans for the future, but to get there, I need your help. Our first Patreon goal is 100 Patreon subscribers for $6 a month, which is less than a pack of Cincos or a jackhammer chatterbait. For more information on our Patreon, please go check it out in the episode description down below. Thank you so much. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens, and today we have the winner of the 5 Lakes Battle, Electric Boogaloo number 2, Josh Reese from the Northern Virginia Kayak Association. And this was the last regular season event of the year before the big shindig on, I believe it's Lake Anna, where it's now located. But Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm really excited to be here, man. This is awesome.
No, I mean, dude, I'm just so glad that I got you guys on this year. And I've kind of run the gauntlet, and I was trying at the beginning of this year. It's like I want to get all the BFL winners on from the Piedmont division and all the NVKBA guys. And so far, I pulled the gauntlet with you guys. Now I've gotten you all, so I feel like mission achieved there. And I was just off by one guy for the Piedmont division of the BFL. So next year, we're going to try to do even more tournament organizations. And if there's an organization, guys, that you want me to cover that's important, let me know and I can try to fit it in. But, enough about that stuff. I mean, Josh, 35th AOI, you won this tournament, and I just flip up my other screen there, with 85.75 inches, which is a pretty good bag for August, believe it or not. And before we get into the tournament, as always, guys, the back history of how all this went down, and really, Josh, how did you get into fishing?
Yeah, so you hear of these guys that have been fishing, all their life since they were like in diapers and stuff, and that's not really me. I did not really grow up fishing. The first time I really got excited about fishing was my grandpa took me out with a couple of his buddies. And we were in Idaho, I think. I was on a trip with my grandparents, and he said, hey, let's go out. I think it was like the Snake River. I don't even know where we were, dude. Like, it was like out there. But we went out fishing for bass. And these two guys were, they had grown, I think they had owned like a sporting goods store or something. So they knew what was going on, and they loved fishing. And so they thought it was cool, I think, to expose kind of the younger generation to something that they were really passionate about and excited about. So that was really cool. And they started showing me like how to, they showed me like the Texas rig, like how to rig it. And I don't remember a whole lot about it, but we were throwing Senko's Texas rig, and they showed me like, hey, make it like really straight. Don't make it like, curly at the top. And then they sprayed it with WD-40. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. I don't condone this or support it, but they were like, you got to get like the human scent like off of your hands because it'll get on the bait. So their solution to it, I think this was before they had like all the, the different scents and stuff, but they're like, we'll spray this with WD-40 and cast it out. So it was just weird, but that was really my first exposure to bass fishing. I loved it. We caught a ton of fish. I thought it was cool. And then it kind of went away for a while, man. Like, I just kept it in the back of my mind. Like, man, that was really fun. I'd love to learn. But every time I would go out, I had no clue what I was doing. And I never really caught any fish. And this was like before, the days of YouTube that, you could get all the content that you have now.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of fast forward to a couple years back, it was in the pandemic. And I think a lot of people picked up, hobbies like this over that time. And I said, you know what, I'm going to learn this. I went and bought like a nice bait caster and rod, like the nicest bait caster and rod I'd ever had. I had like a Bass Pro cheap one before that. And I started learning it and just bank fishing. I was like, man, this is cool. And I remember one day I was over at Lake Brittle, and I was standing there on the bank. Yeah, I was standing there on the bank, like fishing the bank at the dam, and I caught a couple. I was like, but I was looking out across the water. I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to like fish over on that side? Like that would be really cool. I was like, that looks pretty good over there. I bet there's bass under those trees over there and stuff. And I was like, I can't get there from here, like there's no way around it. So that started to get me thinking like, man, kayak fishing. And it was kind of getting really popular at that time, and just watching YouTube content. So man, I got into it. I started researching kayaks and bought my first I use a 106 PDL Old Town, and just started getting into it, man. And it's been just a fun ride ever since. And did my first tournament in 2022. It was the KBF Potomac tournament, and I was out there. I had no idea what I was doing, man. It was like I was just casting randomly, and I ended up like I got in the 40th place. There's like about 120 anglers, I think, or something like that, and I got
Wow.
in like I've caught like 4 fish and got to like in the 40s of the ranking. I was like, for my first tournament, I was like, so that got me like the tournament bug, you know. I was like,
Hmm.
all right, now this is really fun too, the competition element and all that. So it's just been a fun ride ever since, man. It's been awesome.
I've always wondered, and I know there's a data point out there. If I really did an all nighter, I could find it. How many people became anglers because of COVID?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, kayaking in of itself, just as a recreation for health and fitness, really blew up. But I really do feel like I know on the YouTube scene, YouTube really blew up for a lot of people around that time. But it's always been fascinating, especially in our area where, yeah, there's more kayaking places to go than there are big bodies of water. We don't live near Lake Gunnersville or in
Yep.
Alabama that has 70 lakes. We do have the Potomac, which is great. But, you know, if you live in Northern Virginia, kayaking is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many either electric only or just little small lakes that have great fit, like good fishing. And sometimes that's better, man, than like you get out with these like crazy boaters that are like running all over the lake and stuff. And so like some of the best times I'll go sometimes during the week to a place and I'm literally the only person on the water. Like I used to go to like Beaver Dam up in
Ooh,
Loudon
yep.
before they drain whatever they're doing it with it now. It's crazy. But last year I went out there, and I just remember I'd go out there on a weekday. I was literally the only person on the entire lake. I had it to myself. It was just awesome and peaceful. You know, like you could really take in like the nature and the scenery without any sort of distraction. So it's cool.
It really is. And the thing about Lake Brittle is I actually my aunt used to live down there back in the day, back in the early 2000s when I was really little. And that was when there was no development around there. And we would do campfire catfishing trips on a Friday night in the summertime. We'd make a bonfire and we'd be out there till like 1 a.m. cooking marshmallows and catfishing. And so that place, it will always hold a special moment in my heart. When I caught my first bass was actually there on a crankbait around
Oh wow.
that main dock, actually, that main dock that's right there. And it really got me to investigating just the fishing lures. But yeah, that place is really neat. That's really, that's a throwback.
That's cool, man. That's awesome.
So how did you even find out about NVKBA?
So I knew about it just from hearing things. Last year I fished more VKT, which I don't really know why I did that. I think my logic was it's a little bit smaller club. Like maybe I had a better chance to like rise to the top, but I didn't really do that great last year. It was more learning, so, I had to like drive along because they fish more on the southern, down Richmond and even further south. And so I fished a couple tournaments, like they were awesome. They were fun. Chickahominy River, Chickahominy Lake. Those are awesome places to fish as well. There's another beaver dam thing down in
Yeah.
southeast Virginia. It's different from the one up here, but that was a cool place to fish too. So I did that for last year, and then this year I decided like, man, like I want to fish a little closer to home. I want to fish a bigger club, and just the club is awesome. Like Mike Ortega does a great job with everything in the club, and it's great guys. I've really started to get to know more of the anglers this year in the club, and make some of those friendships. And Mike's doing a great job bringing people kind of back out of the COVID wave and getting more of those events where we can
Hmm.
have some get-togethers and some of the awards ceremonies after the tournaments have been great to just kind of get people together and hang out, and so that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and huge shout out to Mike for everything you do, and then hopefully, next year, if the Patreon thing goes well, I can start live streaming some of those weigh-ins as well. I'll have the technology to do that and give it actually good quality. Because if you guys know, and you guys know this from the live stream that I've done a week ago when this drops, I'm very OCD on making sure the audio and stuff is best as possible. It's just my weird tick, because I know when I listen to people it doesn't sound good. It annoys me. So I'm pretty hard on myself with that. But what Mike does is absolutely amazing. And the five, and I need to have him on to talk about this. The idea of the 5 lake format, I really like that, just from the convenience of, listen, I am a Western Loudoun County boy at heart. That's really where I grew up most of my life, Sleeter's Lake. And the fact is that you could pick that lake and I didn't have to drive to the res was kind of nice. Even though that the res is by far, it's in its prime right now. It's historically good, yes. But you didn't have to drive there to compete in the tournament. And that's such a nice thing to have picks. It's just such a neat little strategy game as well.
It's a big strategy game, and I put a lot of thought into kind of where I'm going to fish those too. And the res was pretty easy for me because I live very close to there, and I was fishing it a lot this year, just practicing earlier in the year, and so I was like, I'm just going to fish that one. But this 5 Lakes 2 was really interesting because I had never fished any of these 5 places before in my entire life going into this tournament. So it was really interesting for me to try to like strategize and pick like which one am I going to go and how am I going to approach it. And that was really an interesting part of the strategy around it.
Of the lakes, so in 2022, your first time you went through the schedule, I'm assuming, did you fish all the events last year?
I fished a handful. Of mainly VKT. I didn't fish NVKBA at all last year. I started out NVKBA this year.
Apologies. And then did you fish any of the bodies of water last year that you were on the tournament docket this year?
Potomac.
Lake Anna?
Yeah, Potomac. I think Potomac might have been the only one.
Oh, wow.
Actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And Anna this year, that was the first time I ever fished Anna.
Dang, dude.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and so I think I placed 15 on that one. That was a pretty good finish. And so it's all like I heard all these things about Anna sucks, like it's a terrible place to fish. And dude, I had a great 2 days out there on Anna. Like it was a good 2 day. Like I went out there for a practice day and they were biting everything I threw. Like literally everything. I brought like 6 rods of different baits and I was like, I'm gonna keep throwing something until I find, at least something they're gonna bite. And I literally my strategy was, once I found something they bit, I'd switch to a different rod. I'd try something else just to kind of play with it and see how many things I could get. And they bit every single thing that I had. Like I had like this bubblegum trick worm thing, and they were biting that. It was like I had chatterbait. They were biting everything. It was crazy. And then the tournament, it slowed down a little because a weather front came through, and it got really cold that morning, like really weird. But I had found kind of my spots, and the kind of like, it's interesting, the decision making in some of these tournaments, and looking back through the year, this all kind of culminates to the most recent one, and winning this one was I had some of the raw pieces there, but there was a missing piece, So Anna, like I found the spots, but my decision making about how long to stay on the spot versus move was off a little, and I found some fish. And I think if I had stayed on these fish, I found some big ones. I think I could have placed even higher. But I decided to move and try to pattern something, and it just didn't work out. So it's interesting, every single tournament is like a learning for me, especially this stage, man. Like I'm learning a ton every time I go out,
Well, I really want to talk about that. So at Lake Anna, first tournament of the year with this new club that you're fishing with, it's your first time on there. And at this point, we already know that you placed 15th. Was that your highest finish at that point in your life?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
In that sense, with not the context of what's about to happen later on in the year, that's a success going from 40 to 15th. So a lot of good decisions were made. And when you're approaching Lake Anna, how did you break this down for your very first time? How did you figure that out?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I decided that I was going to fish mid-lake for whatever reason. I usually, when I break this stuff down, I started researching what I was going to do on Anna over the winter because I was bored, like over the winter, like what are you doing? You're cleaning your rods, you're cleaning your reels and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm going to get started like thinking about next year. And I just like the map study and the research part of it. It's fun. So I started like thinking about like where am I going to launch? You know, what are the bass going to be doing at that time of the year? How am I going to approach this? And I decided I was going to go mid lake, and then I was going to um, kind of figure out where they were. You know, my practice approach is like, at least for that tournament, was let me pick a creek, and I'm going to launch, and I launched in sort of the back of a creek, and I said I'm going to go until I stopped finding fish. And I went all the way to like I started catching some fish. I kept going because I knew the fish were coming in right to spawn. So it was like pre-spawn. So I was like, let me just figure out where the boundary of that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept going, and finally, then I started catching these like wipers or striper kind of fish out there. And I wasn't catching largemouth anymore. I was like, okay, I think I found kind of where they are. Like they're in the creek now, but they're not past a certain point. So I was like, now I kind of have a zone that I'm going to really focus on for the tournament. And I found a couple of points in parts that I thought, you know, that I was catching them. So I marked them and I said, I'm going to start there and really kind of hone in on there. So that was kind of my approach.
And you said mark them. That's a good point that I forgot to ask you. So this year you were running electronics in on your kayak as
Hmm.
well? Okay.
Yeah, I've got a Garmin 73 SV, and actually it plays a critical role in this tournament later on. So we'll get into that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've been really learning the electronics this year, and that's been part of my journey too. Is like when I started, I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like there's just a bunch of and I'm looking for arches, but I'm like, I don't know if what is this, a catfish, a bass, or is it grass? Like
Yep.
sometimes like the vegetation also looks weird. And so just dialing that in a little bit more through the year has been something I've been really working on. That and like deep fishing, like that's always been a challenge for me. It's like I've tried, several times in the past to just find fish deep, catch them deep, and I just really, it's a weaker part of my game at this point, but I'm improving, so the electronics have really helped with some of that.
No, mastering electronics is just so important to make you a well-rounded angler, even if you're not going to do the whole I'm just going to always fish deep section. And I also want to highlight too, it's a very interesting thing. If you read any literature, they always say work deep to shallow in the early spring. I kind of like your approach better because I think even though everyone says there's always fish shallow, 100% there's always fish deep. So if you start shallow, you will eliminate water way quicker as you work into the deep zone where you know they should be during the winter. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I found them kind of in this zone. They've been in this zone like all year. I've been catching them in like not too deep, but like this 10 foot to 15 foot zone, like almost everywhere I've been going, man.
Hmm.
Like, and it doesn't matter. It's weird. Like on Anna, it was like that. On this last tournament, it was like that too. It's just interesting. I thought, I think when it gets out to like 30 and 40, that's when I was like, I don't know what I'm doing out here. You could try to find a brush pile in like 30-foot water. It's like, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm finding my places where my techniques work, and I think that's, kind of where I'm really trying to hone in on for now.
So you crack a 15, and then I believe the next tournament is Potomac, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep,
correct?
yep.
What happens there in tournament number 2?
So I completely blanked that tournament. I went out of Lee, Sylvania, and first off, I didn't practice at all. I probably should have practiced something and figured something out. There was too much going on, and I didn't have time to take off. So I launched out of Lee, Sylvania. I'm like, I'm going to fish like Pohick Creek and Neabsco Creek. And dude, there was like, I would have been better off finding like some kind of grass, that was like coming up, and I just couldn't find anything really. And the weather was kind of weird for that one too. It was just off for me. So and this is where it's like your launch point really for in a kayak is so important. Like, because I can't run, 10
Mm-hmm.
miles to find some of this stuff. You're really kind of limited to where you're a zone of where you want to focus. And so that just wasn't really working for me for that tournament. So, but I learned, like, hey, you really have to pay attention to where your launch is and try to find something. And I stuck it out. I tried everything I had, but nothing was really. I think I got a bite on a swim jig, and it shook the hook, and that was about it for the whole day.
Yeah, and when you talk about spots, I mean that's a place, the Potomac, where if you're not on the right spot, just good luck. It's not happening there. And
Yep.
and so you got a 15th, you got a less than stellar performance on the old Potomac, and now we're going to move into, I believe it is the Bronzeback Challenge.
Yep. So I didn't fish that one. Um, the float thing is like just an added layer of logistics for me that I'm trying to still navigate. So I didn't fish that one. The next one for me was Five Lakes One, I think.
So how are you feeling at this point where it's like 15th, perfect, great start, blank, and then you skip?
Yep.
That's got to be mentally playing on you a little bit going into the Battle of Five Lakes.
Yeah, for sure. I came into that and I said, I just want to let me just catch some fish. Let me catch a limit. That's usually my goal in every tournament. If I can catch a limit that I feel pretty good, and in kayak tournaments, I feel like if you catch a limit, like you're going to be up there, like you're in a pretty good spot. And so the day I did a practice day before that, I fished Occoquan, and it was rainy all day, raining like cats and dogs, and I was catching fish after fish, like 12 inchers all day on practice day. So I was like, okay, my strategy for the tournament then is like I got to find bigger fish. I gotta see if I can figure something out. So tournament day comes around, and man, I start out great. Like I catch, I think it was like a 15 or 16, and then I hook this big one on a jig, 18 3/4. And this is like all before, 8 in the morning or something. And I was like, oh man, I felt great. I was like, man, I'm starting out pretty good here, right? I was like, this could be a good day. And then I thought, I was like, hey, all I got to do is catch 3 12-inchers just like I was catching yesterday. And I should be set. Like I should be, in a pretty good standing. And I'll tell you, dude, I went the whole rest of the day after 8 o'clock, and I didn't catch a single fish, not even a bite. And I was throwing like all the same stuff I was doing the day before. Then I was switching it up, and I was not in a good mental state at that point, because I'm like, man, I'm this close to like, making something happen. And I was like, all I got to do is catch like 3 like dinks, really, and I couldn't find them, man. So that was like a pretty like negative state of mind after that tournament. It's like I was that close, and I was like trying to figure out like what, you replay it, like what could I do better? Where did I go wrong? Was I in the wrong spot? Should I have changed something up? Like what was I doing? Yeah, I mean, it was cool. You beat me by a 1/4 inch in big bass in that tournament.
Just a chinny chin chin.
Which was awesome. Like Mike Ortega, he announced who won big bass. I was like, oh, Tom's here. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, he texted me. I was actually, it's funny. I was gonna go to the banquet, but my wife's plane got in early from Reagan, so I literally threw the kayak in the back and was driving straight to the airport because she called me. I was on the water. It's like, my plane landed early. You got to get here. And he's like, you're not going to believe this. And it was crazy on that one, guys. I have never seen Sleeters like that packed. And I knew beforehand it was either going to be Sleeters or the Res, probably the Res, because those are the two on the schedule that, like, the Frederick, there's no way in hell someone was going to win there. Again, Lee, I know you're probably listening to this. I don't know what makes you so masochistic that you're going to go there. God love you for doing it, but oof, that place is brutal if you had to pick that one.
Yeah, I never fished there, but
good.
I'll have to check it out sometime.
Once you get live scope on your boat, you'll like it. It's a live scope paradise there. But yeah, okay, so we got that one out of the way. Another, again, great, good stellar performance for your second year, and that gets into the Rappahannock, which, yeah, that's going to be fun.
Man, that was the first time I've ever fished there, and it was a learning experience. So I did a practice day the day before, and I launched kind of mid river, not quite up at Fredericksburg, but a little bit below that, and I just wasn't making anything happen. I caught a smallmouth, so that was cool, and then a small largemouth, but it wasn't jiving for some reason with me, and so I decided to go do a YOLO and just say like, look, I'm gonna like launch at Port Royal on tournament day, and I was looking at the maps. I was like, "There's grass down there and stuff. Maybe
Good
I'll
plan.
figure something out." So I get out there, dude, and that grass is like crazy. Like I've never seen it is like completely choked with grass, and then it goes out to like this grass edge with the main river channel, and there's a bridge there. So I was like, man, all this is adding up to like good stuff, if I can figure out something. I caught big catfish on that grass edge on a
Hmm.
chatterbait. There was like huge like blue catfish, but I wasn't catching much of any bass, and it just didn't feel right. And again, back to the location, when you're on a kayak, like it just didn't feel right. And I kind of went up and down that area, but I think the guys that did better were kind of more in that mid-river zone, and probably just figured out something that I didn't know about.
Yeah, and the other part to that tale to really kind of keep in mind was that Scott was using like an underspin. I have never, and again, maybe it slipped my mind. I have not heard of a lot of people on Tidal throwing an underspin for bass. That is such a neat thing. And again, guys, you should probably go back and listen to that episode as well. He stuck a decent smallmouth apparently. Wow. I mean, I don't know where he's fishing, but I guess it wasn't too brackish. But that was insane.
Yeah, Scott's a great guy. I got to talk to him recently at one of the NVKBA events, and man, that guy's awesome. He's a really down to earth guy, and he said something in his podcast that really stuck with me, which really ties into my experience. Because he said he started fishing tournaments around, I think, the same time I did, and he said, man, this happened to win, happened a lot faster than he expected. And that like totally I did not expect to win a tournament this year,
Mm-hmm.
man. I was just trying to like learn and improve as much as I can. And I knew, you always hope your time is going to come, sooner rather than later. But I did not go in expecting, the outcome that happened. And it was pretty cool.
If preparation meets opportunity, and that's where it's so cool that what happened here. So we get to it, the Battle of Five Lakes, Chapter 2. And then for people that don't know, I guess the lakes were, and I could be wrong here, but it's Hunting Run, Able, right? What
Mott's
else?
Run.
Potts Run.
Yeah, Mott's Run. I don't even know where that one is. And then there's Nye and
Mooney.
yeah, Mooney.
Mooney was the
Yep.
other one. So of those five, you've never fished them before, correct?
Correct.
So what made you the decision?
Yeah, so I was doing a bunch of research. So you had somebody on the show that talked about some of the bodies of water, and somebody was on talking about Mooney, and they're like, "Man, this place is up and coming. It's a really good place."
Marty
So
Lawson. Yep.
yeah, so
Ripping lips.
I parked that in the back of my mind. I was like, "Oh, okay, Mooney." Then I'd start doing my map study, and I was like, "Man, number one, I like it. It's big, and it just set up nicely. There was just something about it. I was like, man, it looks cool. Like it's got good like depth changes and like just a lot of interesting features. And I liked you could go on Google Earth and get images of it before they filled it, so you can see like like all the road beds. You can see everything that's underneath there and mark it and make your waypoints and stuff. I don't know how much of that actually helped me in this tournament, but I did all of that and was studying like as much as I could leading up to the tournament. And I just thought it set up nice. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go all in with this one. Um, it's August, so I figured, they're probably going to be, pretty deep, so I kind of had a feeling going into the tournament, like drop shot's going to be the thing. And that's kind of one of my favorite, definitely my favorite finesse technique. So I was like, okay, it sets up pretty good. I think I'm gonna, I'll try a bunch of stuff, but I'll make sure I have, my drop shot game ready for that. And so yeah, going into the tournament, man, like practice time, I get out there and I start cruising around, and I find a couple spots. I get a couple bites on a point, and just cruising around, and I find one spot that seems pretty good, right? But not much else. right? So there's kind of one spot that I kind of lock in. And I said, like, well, at least I'm getting bites here. I caught a couple of 14 inchers there on practice day. And so I said, okay, like, this could be probably my place to start on tournament day, and then I'll just kind of take it from there. And I marked a couple of other places where I caught like a dink here and there, and I was like, okay, well, at least I know there's fish here, so we'll see what happens in the tournament, right? They're not that big, but I'll just kind of make a day of it. And that was kind of my practice day. So my mindset going into tournament is, man, I really have like one spot, so that I found that seemed decent. So I tell myself, man, I'm gonna get there early, and I'm gonna get to that spot as quickly as I can because I don't know who else is gonna be out there, how many people are going to Mooney,
How
but
many people did end up going to Moody? Like when you got
there
there?
was probably about, if I had to guess, it was probably about 10 folks actually. I mean, there was a decent
Yeah,
amount of traffic out there. Yeah.
that's not bad. Wow.
Yeah, Mike Ortega was out there as well,
Hmm.
actually. So he fished there, and Michael Hogan. I don't know if you know him, but he's like a real great angler in NVKBA. So he was out there, um, and so fun. A little interesting story about that is, so I launch, right. So I get there, and he's there, and another angler are there, but they're kind of still rigging up. So this is like, I don't even know when it was. Like it was five something, It was probably like 5 in the morning. Like it was early. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out there to my spot, and it's not that far away. Like the entire day I fished within visual distance of the ramp. So I did not go like way up north on Mooney into the like little fingers. I like stayed more down lake. But I was like, I got to get to that spot. So I motor out there as quickly as possible. And I'm just sitting there, like eating my Wawa sandwich and rigging up rods and doing whatever, like, to kill time until the tournament starts. And so Michael Hogan motors by me, right? And so he's like, hey, man, he's like, how many inches do you think it's going to take to win today? And I was like, I don't know, like at least it's got to be at least 80. I was like, I have no idea. And so he goes, well, last year tournament, he's like, you didn't fish with us last year, right? I was like, no. He's like, well, last year it took like 90, 91 and some inches. He's like, this is like, these are like the big fish lakes. He's like, there's going to be some people catching big fish out here today, right? So I was like, so I have this in my mind now,
Hmm.
right? I'm like, all right, it's going to take like 92 inches to win this thing. I was like, that's a lot. Those are some big fish, right? So I've got this locked in my mind as far as like, hey, what is it going to take to win this thing? But at least I'm on my spot and I'm like ready to go, right? So tournament kicks off. I start throwing some top water just to kind of see if anything happens. Nothing happens on that. So then I switch over to drop shot, and that was what I was catching them on in my practice, right? So I was like, all right, I'm going to just go to my technique here, and I'm just going to start in and see what happens. So now the conditions were interesting, right? So it's a very clear lake. Like the water's you could see to the bottom in like 8 feet.
Wow.
Like the visibility, like, yeah, it's super, super clear. But the weird thing is there's like this big, thick carpet of grass all the way down from the bank all the way down to like 18 feet. Like it was just, and it's just this thick carpet. It doesn't grow like way up in the water column. It just like carpets it. So that was kind of weird, kind of limited like some of the techniques,
Hmm.
but drop shot was perfect. Drop shot is perfect because I could just kind of skate it along the top of that grass,
And you mentioned something earlier. What keyed you into the drop shot in practice?
It's just like one of my go-to techniques, So I was throwing like a shaky head a little bit. That's something I've been really learning this year. I threw a jig, but I knew they were going to be deep, right? So I was like, they're going to be, at least in 10 feet of water, I think, based on like, the time of the year. So I was like, my go-to deep rig is a drop shot. It's just something I have comfort with. It's something I have confidence in. So I was like, that's what I'm gonna, probably anchor on and just see if I can get bit on that.
Mm.
And sure enough, that was the thing I was getting bites on in practice. So I was like, I think I got a bite on a shaky head and on a jig. But fishing a jig was really tough. Like I had a football jig, but with all the grass down there, it wasn't working out so well. So I kind of just locked in on a drop shot, and it was working. So I was like, I'm just gonna stick with that.
What specifically about that spot made it work? What do you like once you got in there and started breaking it down even further?
Yeah. So it had a lot of structure there. There was it was like a spot within a spot kind of a deal where there's a brush pile there. There was it was kind of windy a little bit. The wind would pick up every now and then. Morning started off pretty calm, and then the wind picked up through the morning. But there was a little bit current coming over this point, and there was like a brush pile right there. I think it all kind of added up to just a good place, and there was structure and habitat, and that was as much as I could figure out. I tried other stuff that kind of looked like that, and it wasn't as productive. So I think it was just one of those spot within a spot kind of deals that was just working.
When did you think you had something going on that day? Not when you won it, but like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this something's happening.
Yeah, so it was interesting, right? So my first fish, so I switch to the drop shot, and I catch a 20 and a quarter, and I hook into that. It starts peeling drag, and I was like, "Whoa, this is pretty awesome." So I catch it, but it didn't feel as big as it was. You know what I mean? Like I thought I had like a 17 or something. I pull it in, and I was like 20 and a quarter. Phew, I was like, I thought I was going to get big fish too. I was like, man, that's pretty good. So I got that one, and I was like, all right, well, my strategy is working. I'm just going to stick on this spot until it doesn't produce, right? And I was like, I'm just going to stay here. So I caught like a 15 or almost a 16, 15 three quarters, and then a 14 off of the same spot. So I was like, but I had that Occoquan tournament in my head because remember I started out really well that day too, and I was like, I just need I just need a limit, right? So I just have this in my mind. I was like, just one more fish. Let me just catch one more fish, and I'm just going to focus on just that next fish, right? So I get those three in the boat, and then the bite tapers off and at that spot. And I was like, oh boy, like what am I going to do now? Like that was my primary spot. And I didn't really feel like I had any good backup spots. Like I didn't find that much in practice, right? So at this point, I'm still not feeling that great, right? Because I kind of have this aquaquad experience back in my head where I started out great, had a big fish early on, and then it just tapered off, and I couldn't make anything happen after that. So I'm kind of haunted by that at this point. Plus, Michael Hogan is like, "Hey, you got to get 92, right?" So I was like, all this is rolling around in my head, and I was like, "Man, if I'm going to compete, with these guys, I got to catch some big fish." So anyway, so the bite tapered off at that. So I was like, well, I was like, there was one other place in my practice where I caught like a dink, like a 12-incher, right? So I was like, let me go over there and just see like what's going on. It was down by the dam, like on the very southern edge of the lake. So I was like, let me go on down there and see, maybe I can make something happen down there. So I go down there, and within a few casts, I've got like a 17 and three quarters. So I was like, oh, like this is pretty good. And so now I'm thinking like all I need is like two more fish, like or one more fish for a limit, right? Because I've got four at this point. So I was like, I just need one more fish. So I catch a 17 on the same spot. So really, I mean, good sized fish. I mean, yeah, like I was shocked, especially since I had only caught like a 12-incher there the day before. So I was like, man, but I don't know. It's down by the dam, and my thought there was like, I don't know if there's some kind of current flow there or what's going on, because I know that's where the water like comes in. So I was like, maybe there's something to this spot. I don't know, but I caught a 17, and the bass's mouth wouldn't close. Like the front of his mouth like closed, but he had like this weird like snarly lip thing going on where like he so they counted it as like a 16 and a half. So I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So at this point I'm feeling pretty good, right? So it's 9:45 in the morning, and I have a limit, and it's a good limit. It's like 83 and three quarters. and I'm feeling pretty good. Like now I'm feeling like, okay, like I'm probably gonna be, in the pack here, right? Like it's still not, I definitely didn't expect to win, but I was like, I think I'm pretty good. But I was like, I still have this, my lowest fish is a 14, right? So I was like, I gotta call this 14. Like I just had this feeling like I have to call this 14 and find a bigger fish. And so I made that like my mission. It's 9:45 in the morning. It's like all I want to do today, like if I do nothing else the rest of the tournament, let me just call this 14. So I start cruising around. But at this point, dude, the bite, like I don't know, for me at least, I think for other people just watching the app and what people were submitting, like the bite felt like it just tapered like way off, like mid-morning, and it got tough, right? So I'm kind of cruising around. I try other spots. I go back to my first spot. I kind of just motor around, and dude, there's nothing. I wasn't getting any bites at all. I'm switching baits up. I put the drop shot down, tried other stuff for a while. I wasn't getting anything. So
What was going through
finally I
your
said, all
head? What
right.
was going through your head at this point?
What I was saying is like just call this 14. I just got to find one more fish that's bigger than 14, and that was my mission. And because I was feeling pretty good, again I had 5 fish. That's all I ever really set out to do in these tournaments, man, is like just try to get 5 fish, because I've had so many tournaments this year where I blanked or I didn't get a limit. So that was just kind of my mindset is like, hey, I got a limit. I feel pretty good. Let me just add on to it and upgrade a little bit. And so, and I said, look, even if I cruise around and I don't, I feel it pretty good, right? Because at least I've got 5. It's a better finish. I know it's going to be a better finish than the Aquaquan finish. So, I'm feeling pretty good. But I'm like, where are these fish, man? Like I can't, I wasn't finding anything. So I go back to the spot by the dam, right? And I'm fishing that for a while. Nothing, nothing.
Mm.
And I was getting ready to move again. And this is where the electronics really comes in because I was getting ready to move and I even started to move to a different spot. And as I was doing that, I look at my side scan. And on my side scan, I see sort of that textbook, like dark shadow, black pocket, and this little white speck of rice that's sitting right in the middle of this dark shadow pocket, right? And I was like, that looks like a bass in there, right? Like that's just textbook. So I was like, okay. So I mark it and I turn the kayak around. I try to like line up with where the spot is and all that stuff. 2 casts in, and I stick a 16, right? So I was like,
Dude.
all right. I was like, this is good. So 2-inch upgrade. I'm feeling really good. I'm like, this was like at 1 p.m. I think. So there's still a little bit of tournament left, but I think it stopped at 2:30. So I'm feeling like really good. I was like, man, I upgraded 85 3/4. At this point, I had 5 inches on the next guy, which was Lee Richmond. He was showing up as second place in the app at this point with like 80 3/4. And so I have 5 inches on the guy, but my mindset is like, okay, this is good, but I felt I'm going to be in top 10. That was my mindset. I was like, with that amount of inches, I gotta be. But I was like, I don't know how many guys are saving their fish to the very end, right? Like there's got to be some people out there. And I just had that 92 stuck in my head. I was like, somebody out there has got 92. They're holding their fish to the end. They're going to submit them last minute, and that'll bump me like way down in the ranking. So I'm feeling pretty good, but at the same time, I'm like, well, we'll see what's going to happen, right? So, yeah. So it was, but the electronics, dude, like that was like clutch. Like, and just to see that like randomly as I was like literally on my way to a different spot just to try something, like I just randomly saw that. It's like like when you always say, Thomas, like when it's your time, it's your time,
It
right?
is.
And like stars were aligning and just like stuff was happening, and so it was cool. It was cool, man.
It is, and it really shows also to the people that hate on forward-facing sonar. You can also do it, to a degree with good, side imaging as well.
Yeah.
You don't need forward-facing sonar, and it's being intuitive to look down. And its example is, Oh, it's 2 weeks ago. I was fishing a Saturday tournament on Big Slack on the Upper Potomac. It's the biggest dam on the Upper Potomac, and it's a boat tournament. And I was there, and we moved to this other spot, and I was making a couple of casts, and then I was like, all right, we're gonna move. Let's just move. And so I start to strap the rods down. And when I was doing that, I was floating. I was drifting away, and when I looked up at my 360 on the backside of this other tree where I couldn't see it before, a couple of dots, and I was like, huh. I picked up a swim bait, fired over there, 6 cranks, boom, 4.5-pound smallmouth. But it was just that I wanted to look one more time at my forward facing center. I was like, what is that? And that's so important because so many people probably would have turned that off or wouldn't, like, whatever. It's not important. I'm not going to investigate that further. You did. Boom. And that's what happens when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so easy to just kind of ignore that and just like, you get in your mindset, like, I got to go to my next spot. But just taking that moment to kind of like watch what's around you and take in like anything that even could be, at that point, I was like, anything that even could be a good spot, like, let me just throw at it and see what I can do here. And it turns out, so I got to the awards, right? So they block the, the standings. We get to the awards, and Mike starts reading out, the names, and he's going up the list, and it's all the great anglers in the club, man, like just really great guys. And one by one, they're going. So I was like, okay, like I'm feeling pretty good, until he gets to Lee Richmond, and he announces at third, right? So now I'm like, like I'm either way, it's great.
Yeah.
Like even if I got, it's an awesome finish, right? But I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, Lee Richmond was second all day long. Now he's third. So either I'm second or I'm first. So somebody waited to the end, right? So sure enough, so I'm just waiting for him to say, like, which name is he going to say? Which name is he going to say, right? So he says Ryan Pataluni with I think he had 84.
84.
So here's the thing, dude. That last fish won me the tournament, right? Because I was sitting before that at 83.75. Ryan had 84. So if I hadn't gotten that fish, man, and it was just that random seeing that speck that, really turned it around. So that was like the winning fish. And, I won. It was such an awesome feeling and rush, man. And
it's addicting.
I was talking with Scott Skinner about it, but there's something about this trophy, man. Like when you get this trophy, like it's just like the money's cool, but the trophy is like awesome.
It's about the trophy. When I mean, my wall behind me has got a bunch of that, and it's not about the money. It's honestly, it's about the dust collectors, as my wife calls them, that you get to put up on your shelf. I mean, dude, and winning your first one like this, it's crack. Especially when you look at you didn't start doing this that long ago. That's a heck of a climb that you've put on.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great feeling, man. And, I'm just trying to ride the wave and keep improving. And the crazy thing, man, is like, I work full time. I don't have a whole lot of time to be out on the water. So it's tough. I try to get in as much as I can, but a lot of times my practice day, I try to take a practice day before every tournament and then the tournament day. And I'm trying to learn stuff out there on practice, like I'll try to bring a new technique out with me just to like, hey, let me try this out, see if this does anything. And so just with that kind of constraint, that's tough, man. And I know a lot of guys are in that same boat, because I think we all want to be doing more of this stuff, but just life, man, you gotta do what you gotta do. And so, that's pretty, I just try to soak in as much knowledge as I can. And huge shout out to Fishing the DMV too, as being part of that, because I've learned a ton, man, from all the people you've had on. Like it's been amazing. And I actually had a chance, Chris Johnson, man, I went out with him on the Potomac earlier in the year because I had heard about him on the podcast, and I had a blast. That guy's awesome, full of energy, and just he pumped up my confidence quite a bit because we caught a lot of fish out there on the Potomac. And I did it right after I blanked on my tournament earlier in the year. I was like, I got to get out with like somebody who knows, just get on some fish out here and get my confidence back up. and he boosted it up, man. It was awesome.
Chris Johnson's absolutely the best. And then, guys, don't worry. I have him scheduled for an interview this fall to do a Potomac River fishing report again, just to see what the fall transition. And that's also an interesting segue to, if you guys really want, I really want to get back to all the guides that I have on the show that come on here off their time to do this. If we hit some of my Patreon marks that I really want to hit, I'm going to be giving away one free guided fishing trip 12 months every month throughout the year, different guys that I have on, so you guys can get a taste of it, whether it's the Shenandoah River, the James, the Potomac, the New River. This way I can give back to all the guys that have mean so much, not only to me and the show, but the community. Like, these are the guys that are on the waters 24/7. So if that's something you'd be interested in, please check out the Patreon page. But no, I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can continue to bring good content and educational stuff. And there's something I really want to hit on here, where you've had 2 tournaments this year where you were in second place for big fish. How did you do that? How are you finding these bigger than average fish?
Dude, I don't even know. So I can get into a couple baits here too, but the first time was on a jig, and jigs catch big fish, and that was almost kind of lucky. I just was throwing a jig and at the res and just hooked into a big one. But this time around, man, I'll show you a bait on drop shot. So this one I caught the big one on, and a couple of those other ones. So this thing is called a Zoom Swamp Crawler. If you've ever heard of that. So it's not as well known. I heard about it from some podcast, some video, something. It's like it's a very slim profile worm, and it's really finessey, and I think it's like closer to like a 4.5 inch, so it's a little bit smaller lengthwise and definitely thinner. And dude, this thing, I'm telling you, man, this thing right here, I've caught a lot of big fish on this thing.
What color is that?
I don't know what it is about it.
That's crazy. What color is that?
This is like a green pumpkin, but it's a green pumpkin with like a black flake in it.
Okay.
And the other cool thing about these things, man, they come in a 25 pack.
Wow.
And they're pretty cheap. Yeah. And I put them on shaky heads sometimes, but they're a great drop shot worm too. And so just something about the profile, man, I like it works for me. And so that one's cool. And
I was gonna say, like, to keep on the drop shot, what is your drop shot setup? What do you like to use?
Yeah, so I use so I got my hooks here. I use these spear point hooks.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
No, I haven't.
So it's got this weird shape to it, like it's called a V grip, and it's supposed to lock in. So maybe I can get, I don't know how.
Yeah, it's showing up. It's showing up. Perfect.
Yeah, you could see how it's like kind of a weird V shape at the end of it. It's not like your typical circle hook.
Okay, yeah.
And it's supposed to, and my experience is the same. It's supposed to lock in a little bit better and make it so it's harder for the fish to shake it off. And so, I mean, these pin them, man. Like every fish I was catching at Mooney was jumping in the air and flopping all over the place, and I didn't lose a single one. And they're light wire, so once it like penetrates their skin, like it's very hard to come out. And so I use those spear points. I really like those on a drop shot. And then I have braid, like a 10-pound braid, and then I use like a 8-pound fluorocarbon leader, and just do like a what is that knot? The complicated one, FG knot. Yep, I just do that, and usually I'll put like a long leader, because I don't like to retie the FG when I'm out there on the boat. So I'll put like 20 feet of like fluoro on there, because if I break off, then I have more line to work with. So I'll just kind of keep working back until I'm close to the braid, and then if I have to retie it, I can. But there's nothing I hate more than wasting time on the water retying. So I've like, that's time I could have a bait, in the water catching a fish. So I try to like minimize that. But let me show you this other one, man. This thing, so this like Biospawn plasma tail is what it's called. And it's an even smaller profile worm. And it's like, I don't know how long this thing is. It's probably only like 4 inches. But this sprayed grass color is like awesome. It's like
Dude,
kind of
that's
like a green
neat.
pumpkin, but almost more translucent. And I kind of so what I noticed at Mooney, dude. Here's what I noticed, right? So early in the morning, like this green pumpkin black flake was working really well, and then it kind of tapered off. And as the sun came up, I don't know what it was, if it was like more iridescent or just a little bit of shimmer from the sunlight. Like this one seemed to be working a little bit better.
Hmm.
So that's a good one, and I put that on a shaky head too, and catch big ones on that too. So that's that. And then the last fish came on. I was just trying other random stuff, and I have this Beast Coast. This is called a Magic Flick,
Looks like a
and
tadpole.
it's like a little 3.5
Huh.
inch. It's called a this color is called what is this, Candy Crush or something like that. It's just this little kind of like bait fish profile.
That is neat.
Yeah, it's got, look at that action on the tail. So it's just like yeah, and so they keyed in on that for some. Those are the only three things I caught stuff on, and they were working, man. So
Dude, good deal. That's awesome. Hey,
it was awesome.
what size rod and braid were you going with? Like the classic 12-pound braid to like a lighter fluorocarbon?
Yeah, I think it's 10 pound, and I have a Dobbins
Good rod.
Fury FR 702. So it's like I don't know if that's you know how they have a heavier version and then a lighter version. I think this is like the slightly heavier version, and I kind of like that with finesse. Let me show you my BFS, because I know you're in
Yes.
BFS.
Yes.
Dude, I've got a great BFS setup. Like, this is awesome. So Cash, I didn't use this at the tournament, but I've been using this all year, and it's catching a lot of fish. So Cash and rods, they're like made in the U.S. in North Carolina, and they're pretty affordable but very high quality rods, and they make a really nice BFS rod, like really nice. It's got like carbon fiber grips and all this kind of stuff. So I've been using this a ton, and they have kind of a ultralight BFS and then this kind of medium BFS, and that's what this one is. And so I use it. I don't throw like super light stuff on it. I throw like shaky heads. You can even throw a drop shot on this. It's kind of weird to throw a drop shot on a bait caster, but you can, or just like weightless Senkos or whatever. But and then I have a on this reel is a Shimano BFS.
Good reel.
And this thing is awesome, because I've tried some other BFS reels. Like I tried cheap ones, like some Cast King thing. Dude, that thing didn't work. I could not get that thing to work. And this is awesome. The braking is and when you have like lighter line, lighter, stuff, like the braking for me at least is really important. Otherwise, it just backlashes a lot. But this is awesome. And I put you'll laugh at 7-pound test.
Nice.
FC Sniper, because they make a 7-pound. And I don't know I was like, 7-pound. Nobody's throwing 7-pound. I'm just going to try that because it's a little bit lighter than 8. But I feel 6 is you start to break off a little bit more if you're throwing kind of this medium zone kind of lures. So I put 7 on it, and this thing is, man, it's awesome. I've been loving this setup.
I'm wanting to get that. That's part of my Black Friday Christmas shopping list, is getting that brand new Shimano BFS that came out at ICAST that has a drag system, a clicker drag system, which looks amazing. And then again, guys, like throwing a drop shot with a bait caster, it does have merit, especially in the boating world. If you're flipping docks, you can flip with that bait caster drop shot setup. It's really fantastic. The other thing I like it towards is small swim baits and spy baits as well. It's just, there's so many applications where you don't need to have that leader. I think if you're going to use a spinning rod and you have that braid to fluorocarbon leader, you don't need that in this situation. You can go straight light line. So it definitely has merit in some applications.
Yeah, it's a great setup, man. I've been loving it, and it catches big fish.
It really
man.
does.
I mean, yeah, that's awesome.
It's the way. I think there's going to be, what's weird about BFS is, unlike glide baits, Mulligan had that big tournament this year where he won, everyone saw it, and people were spending thousands of dollars for glide baits. The BFS stuff hasn't had a big win in the limelight, and so it's just under the radar. No one's talking about it, and I'll keep going at it. Someone's going to crack a win probably next year, and then the floodgates are going to open on that, because there's a lot of guys I know professionally that are fishing or flipping. There's a ton of guys. Shryock does this too, where he's throwing a very light flipping setup because you're just going to get more bites. You just are.
Yeah. I really want to try those like Z-Man micro lures and stuff.
Dude.
I think you've been talking about that. Yeah, I'd put that on this BFS and see how that goes. So that's kind of my next thing to kind of explore on that setup. But yeah, man, I mean it catches fish, and for ponds and stuff. I still fish ponds in the area just to try to keep my skills sharp. If I have just to get the kayak out and go somewhere, it's a lot. But if you just have a couple hours, you just go to your local pond and test out new lures and stuff. And so BFS is great for ponds. Like, it's awesome for ponds.
And you can throw an inline spinner, guys. A little rooster tail or a panther martin will work great on a BFS setup. That's what I use when I'll just dunk around behind the Konica jig behind my house. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Josh, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show tonight. And then, is there anything else that you want to do this year, or you have any goals or plans coming up for next year?
I might try to fish. I do want to fish a BFL as a co-angler. I've never done that, so I kind of want to do that. There's one on the Potomac coming up in a few weeks, so I might try to see if I can get in on that. But no, other than that, like next year, really just trying to. I want to fish the charity tournament this year for NVKBA. I think that's awesome for Heroes on the Water. So that's a great cause, and I love that they're doing that. But for next year, man, just keep leveling up my game and keep learning new things. For me, it's the great thing about fishing, man, is there's never going to be a point in time where you know everything about fishing. It always is a challenge, and it never gets boring because of that. Because there's always something new to learn and experience. And so for me, that's what it's all about. And so next year, I hope to qualify for the Classic NVKBA and just have a great season next year and continue to kind of learn some of these new places and bodies of water that are new to me, but just get some reps in on them. And that's really what I'm trying to go for.
Again, guys, link in the episode description, everything we talked about today, including to NVKBA and everything that Josh was talking about. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out in the algorithm. And if you'd like to, you can now become a Patreon member and really help support this channel as we grow towards our overall goal, which is starting a nonprofit to actually help not only the angler amenities that are around our area, but also help with some supplemental stocking of all these great places. And like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.